You know, we're here today because of the legacy of one extraordinary man, a mayor of the city of Atlanta. His name is Maynard Jackson. His leadership and character was truly an inspiration to the city that he put on his back and carried so many times. I look forward to May 16th when we greet travelers from around the world in this new state-of-the-art terminal, best in class. It's going to connect us with 75 international destinations in 50 different countries. Today, the Maynard H. Jackson International Terminal stands as a testament to our continued effort to make Atlanta a leading city in the world.
Atlanta would not be what it is today without Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. There's no doubt about that. And it goes way back when some of the decisions were made by Mayor Hartsfield and then Maynard Jackson.
100 years ago, this expanse of concrete was wide open fields and swamps and the headwaters of the Flint River. In the middle of a pasture owned by Coca-Cola magnate Asa Candler was a little-used race car oval. Searching for the perfect spot, city officials, led by future Mayor William Hartsfield, decided on Candler's property for its fledgling airport, naming it Candler Field, in hopes he would donate the land. Atlanta, then, took the initiative while other southeastern cities held back.
Birmingham, at the time, did not have a William B. Hartsfield, did not have a mayor in a city office that wanted air travel at all costs. It was a big risk, frankly. They continue to float the investments to build new infrastructure, go from dirt to paved runways. First 5-year lease was essentially for free. It was almost a proving ground to see if the industry would really catch on. Atlanta took the risk. All these other cities around the South couldn't keep up.
Over the last 100 years, Atlanta has exploded while serving as the home for much of the growth of the commercial airline industry. The airlines and the airport are, and have been, vital elements in Atlanta's past, present, and its future. Today, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson is the busiest airport in the world. The challenge now, just as it was back in the early days of Candler Field, what does the airport do next? To grow is a relatively simple decision. How to grow is much more complicated. While it may be a tremendous challenge to manage the world's busiest airport into the future, the traveling public doesn't really care. They want things to go flawlessly every time. The pressure is always there to make the airport easier to navigate, more accessible, and more passenger-friendly. Making the best even better. The Maynard H. Jackson Jr. International Terminal. Since its very inception, the airport has been owned by the City of Atlanta and managed as a business by the Department of Aviation.
Planes landing and taking off around here, it's a good thing for us. Last year we had 935,000 planes take off and land at Hartsfield-Jackson. 92.4 million passengers went through the airport last year.
All that activity 10 miles south of downtown Atlanta has a ripple effect across the metropolitan region, the rest of the state, and the entire Southeast.
There's no doubt about that, because the airport stimulates so many opportunities for travel. It's going to allow the economy to continue to grow.
You really have to balance all of the facilities. Your airfield is your critical capacity factor. Next to your airfield is obviously the gates you have to park the airplanes that can get in. When you have the gates, you have to have the terminal facilities to process the passengers. When you have the terminal facilities, you have to have the landside facilities, the roads, the parking.
We're always looking at ways in investing in this airport to meet the demands of the traveling public. We want the traveling public to have a seamless experience.
The airport forecasted growth across the board, so it knew it was going to have to expand. But how? What would best serve the needs of the traveling public?
We needed more gates and terminal capacity and facilities, both for level of service as well as just pure capacity.
When airport officials asked passengers how to improve Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, they heard one response loud and clear: international travelers faced a time-consuming inconvenience upon arrival in Atlanta.
For many years, our international passengers had to recheck their bags and go back through security to get to their car.
That added upwards of 45 minutes to an international arrival time. It was so inconvenient that many experienced travelers, even from Georgia, knew this and routed themselves around the Atlanta airport. Delta Airlines is Hartsfield-Jackson's largest tenant. It's been based out of Atlanta since the 1930s. But for Richard Anderson, Delta's CEO, this was not just a passenger inconvenience, but business being lost. The solution? Build an entirely new entrance, the Maynard H. Jackson Jr. International Terminal, a $1.4 billion international terminal and concourse complex, America's newest global gateway.
And I know the travelers will love the efficiency, especially when they only have to check their bag one time. You know, it only cost us about $1.5 billion.
The importance of this building is that it expands our international gateway to the world, allows us to have continued growth in flying more international departures. Here we have nonstop flights to over 70 destinations worldwide. And the international is a major thing for us, you know, being the busiest airport, but internationally, because that brings so many people to Atlanta from distant countries, to and from, allows them to ship their products back and forth. So it's not just passengers, it's cargo as well. That is very, very important to our community.
Ground was broken in 2004. From the time the first Earth was moved to the first flight out, it took thousands of men and women, millions of hours to make America's newest global gateway a reality. The Maynard H. Jackson Jr. International Terminal and Concourse F.
I'm Mike Williams. I'm the Assistant Director for the International Terminal Project, which means that I'm the guy in charge and the buck stops here. So I'm responsible for delivering the project for the owner on time, on budget. Typically on large projects like this, you have joint ventures just because it is more than one firm can handle.
The City of Atlanta's Department of Aviation spurred the creation of two consortiums, one to design and another to build the terminal project. Atlanta Gateway Designers, a joint venture of architects, engineers, and designers with expertise in every field imaginable, came up with the plans. Jay Wolgemuth is the architect of record for Atlanta Gateway Designers and the City of Atlanta on the Maynard H. Jackson Jr. International Terminal.
Primary function of this facility will be the front door for Atlanta. We really look at this as a 40-gate international terminal complex, of which this new facility will be 12 gates.
No one has been involved in more aspects of the project than Tom Helwig. He was the project manager for Atlanta Gateway Designers from beginning to end. He oversaw everything from concrete and steel to carpet and tile.
Personally, I've got over 10,000 hours in the project already with more to come, and I think that everyone wants to feel that there's some part of it that they made better, then they have that pride where they can bring their kids and grandkids out and say, I was a part of this team, we did something great, and here it is.
Construction companies with the capabilities, the experience, and the financial stability to actually finish the project had to be selected. HMMH, a joint venture of 4 companies, Hunt, Holder, Moody, and Manhattan, collaborated on the construction, each bringing a specific strength. Randy Rager is the point man for the HMMH joint venture.
In this case, we're holding about 140 trade contracts to do the work for $1.1 billion. We are taking the risk for the project.
That means HMMH is responsible for everything that happens on the construction site by virtually everyone for the entire project. Budget, schedule, quality, and safety, all of it. Therefore, no risk is too small to be considered. The better the project is managed, the greater the financial rewards, and the better the final outcome.
Something as big and complicated as this, you get the designers and the planners involved immediately. You got the builder on board from the very start of the project. And the builders can have a lot of input into the design aspect of it.
The city wanted something highly functional and beautiful in a tasteful, understated way that would also meet current and future demands for international service.
I look at an airline facility as something that needs to be very efficient, user-friendly. It needs to be very functional. So although you want them to look nice, I think the most important thing is the efficient operation and the passenger experience.
From the designer's perspective, the movement and positioning of airplanes would be tight and tricky due to the size of the site. Baggage would need to take precedence over every other system in the building, and the new construction needed to be connected to the rest of the airport by Atlanta's famous people mover, the plane train. As ironic as it may seem, the first step in the construction of the airport terminal was the digging of a tunnel that was necessary to extend Atlanta's famous plane train. The train that everyone who has ever been to the Atlanta airport in the last 30 years has ridden.
From the beginning, I knew that unless we could get the train system completed and go through that long testing period, that we couldn't open. We wouldn't be successful. So the critical path on the project from day one was the tunnel construction and the train.
A tunnel for the plane train needed to be dug to connect the new terminal and Concourse F to Concourse C and the rest of the airport. Before the construction could get started, the geology of the site made them reassess their plans. The soil was too soft to allow a tunnel to be dug.
With soft soils, they have what they call the silo effect, where if you lose the face of the tunnel, then it can actually silo up to the surface and it all just sloughs into the hole.
They needed a new plan, and fast. Working closely together, the two consortiums, Atlanta Gateway Designers and HMMH, discovered that a tunnel would fit and could be built directly under Concourse E if they could build a new foundation while the building was in use. This was to be no simple tunnel. In addition to the two plane train tracks, the tunnel needed to contain a third track for maintenance, pedestrian corridors, baggage conveyors, and a multitude of conduits for mechanical systems. The team came up with a plan that solved the soil problem and saved $90 million and a year off the schedule. The new plan had two parts. Both would happen at the same time. They would dig a large trench across a taxiway from Concourse E to the new Concourse F. They would fill the trench with massive concrete walls and ceilings for the trains and everything else. Then they would bury it under tons of dirt and the reconnected taxiway. The second component, they would excavate 80 feet down for more than 900 feet beneath the existing Concourse E while it was in use. They needed to remove the old foundation, in some places by hand.
What we're doing tonight is there's 4 existing columns that we have to relocate the foundations for and still support Concourse E above us.
HMMH turned to a no-nonsense, respected, and experienced superintendent, Terry Rutherford, to oversee the entire tunnel project, which was expected to take over 2 years to complete.
The new train alignment runs right under these columns. It was about 3 weeks of work to get the new foundations in place. It's taken us about a week and a half just to install all this steel that you see.
Transferring the load of the occupied building from one foundation to another required supporting the building with a hydraulic system comprised of steel beams so large they needed to come all the way from Germany.
After we cut each existing pile, the engineers that designed the system are taking shots to try to detect any movement. If we detect movement as little as 1/1000th of an inch, there's 6 hydraulic jacks that's attached to this beam system above me that we jack up the existing footings. Once that load is transferred, then we cut another pile. We check the readings on that to detect any movement. If there's movement, we exert more pressure on it and then go through the process again. So altogether, it's about an 8-week process just to get the new work in place, transfer the load, and then start going on down with the excavation.
This steel and concrete is only the first step. When the load is shifted, then they continue excavating another 50 feet deeper to make room for the plane train lines and everything else.
It's real touchy. I mean, there's a lot of coordination and a lot of consideration, noise, vibration. You know, we don't want to give anybody the illusion that something's going on down below them that scares them.
The most respected and experienced men on the job site are the construction superintendents. It's their know-how that gets quality work done efficiently and safely.
Can we really do this? Do we have enough room? How do we handle logistics, staging of materials, really figure out how we're going to achieve it? And we can't do that without our superintendents.
We're working underneath an existing taxiway. We're working underneath an international concourse. And these guys are just eating it up and making sure it stays on schedule and just driving the forces home to make it all work right. I counted 20 cranes out there one day, all working together. You don't do that without the larger-than-life superintendents pulling all of the strings and making sure it all works together.
Over the course of the project, literally millions of tasks had to be performed to build the terminal and the new gates and the area surrounding both. Those details for the entire project were held in a number of places. On paper in plans, in building information modeling computers, and in this man's head.
Construction is unique in the sense that there's something different every day and something changes every day, and every moment really, for that matter.
Bob Evans, the senior construction superintendent on the project, is the HMMH employee responsible for everyone and everything on the construction site.
Been doing it all my life. I grew up hands-on. I grew up as a laborer. I grew up as a carpenter. I grew up as an operator. So I came out from the ranks.
The general superintendent on this project is an older fellow with years and years and years of experience. He's kind of the pusher and the driver, has a good attitude, knows what he's doing. You can talk with him.
On this day in April 2011, Bob's first stop is to check on an iron worker whose harness caught him when he slipped on the steel. The harness prevented a fall and a serious injury. To Bob, there is nothing more important on the job site than safety. Immediately finding out what happened is the best way to keep it from happening again. Any worker with the risk of falling, working on the edge or on a beam, must wear a safety harness and retractable lanyard.
Years ago, we used to just have a belt harness that would just grab you around your waist, and if it did engage, it would just kind of just like a choke line, you know, around your waist. But those things are not used anymore. They use full body harnesses. Even at that, abrupt stop is still an abrupt stop. But it's better to be engaged than to not be engaged.
Next on his morning's rounds, inspecting the work going on outside the building.
What you see on this truck right here is fuel line piping.
The facility has a constantly circulating fuel system surrounding the new concourse. Some of the glass walls are starting to be installed, but Bob's inspection of exterior work is cut short by, well, just one of those things that happens sometimes on a big construction site. A backhoe clipped a water line, bringing work to a standstill until the water can be turned off and the pipe fixed. Bob's next stop, to check on the air quality for the construction workers digging the tunnel under Concourse E. He has earned the construction workers' respect by keeping their best interests in mind. In return, he gets a high level of quality and productivity.
Everybody out here has a job to do, and these men and women that work out here work with their hands, or driving the nails, putting the mortars up, and doing it what it takes to get the job done, and dealing with all the physical part of doing the work.
When you're out on the construction site day after day, it can be difficult to detect much progress. But then, some weeks, things happen that are transforming. This week is such a week for Fred Groom, the construction superintendent responsible for the building itself. They're going to hang the largest steel beams, or trusses, in the entire building on a cold and windy day in February 2010.
The superintendent who's responsible for the overall building is just phenomenal, and he can just stand there and explain to you how he's going to build this whole entire project.
The size of the trusses necessitates the use of a couple very large and relatively scarce cranes working together in tandem. These behemoths are constantly in use or traveling. Both came in on numerous 18-wheelers, arriving in the order necessary to build them. Each travels with a second, smaller crane used to build the larger one. It takes about 24 hours to build one and get it certified for use.
With 32,000 pounds of weight, the best thing to do is assemble them on the ground directly below the pick, so you can pick them straight up into position. The more you move around the cranes and swing these cranes, the more risk you take.
The hanging of these two beams is critical for the project to proceed. They will tie the two halves of the building together. With them in place, the building's frame will be stiff enough that the remainder of the steel can be hung. Two months later, in April 2010, a ceremony that dates back to Roman days was held, the topping out. A pine tree is hoisted to the building's highest point. In ancient times, it was to scare off evil spirits. Today, it marks the hanging of the last piece of steel. At this point, the end is in sight.
When you look at what this great city has done at this airport, no one else is topping off a $1.2 billion international terminal expansion, and we are the capital of the southern United States. And we should be proud of that, and having the world's largest airport doesn't happen by accident.
This is a wow moment. You come with a usual political speech, and you're coming just to cut the ribbon and bring greetings, and then your breath is taken away by the work that is being done here.
Dignitaries, including Valerie Jackson, Maynard Jackson's widow, were invited to sign one beam, while high above, tradesmen signed another.
When I first came into office, we had the topping off ceremony. And on that day, this was the Sharpie pen that was used. And I was a newly elected mayor, and we were talking about finishing this terminal by the spring of 2012. I felt really uncomfortable saying that, but Richard wanted it open by the spring of 2012. I made the decision that day that if Maynard Jackson could move Highway 85 in order to build this airport, that I could get it open on time by the spring of 2012.
The ceremonial last beams were hoisted into place. After the dignitaries left, lunch was served to all those working on the site that day. Soon their work would be done, and a new group of contractors would come in to finish the building. More than 2 years of hard work still needed to be completed before airplanes and passengers would use America's newest global gateway. It is 2012. The deadline for opening in the spring is looming. The building is enclosed in glass and steel, and the roof is complete. The internal walls are up and divide the building into different functional spaces. Final touches are being applied everywhere.
Yeah, we're at the final phase now of getting all the systems and everything all tied together and making it all work, where there's a lot of testing, commissioning, final checkout to get to where you're ready to open.
Make no mistake, this is a very, very complex operation. And there's a lot of moving parts, and every moving part has to be in synchronization.
In this case, where we've got a new front entrance, so we've got new roadways, new structures, new buildings, people's jobs have to adapt and change.
For the entire time the building was being constructed, airport operations experts, the activation team, planned for its use. Every issue, feature, and contingency is discussed. Everything from a place for travelers' pets to relieve themselves to making sure 747s fit at the gate. And once it's all in place, but before the traveling public arrives for real, they need to open up the terminal and put it through its paces for a trial run. On May 2nd, just 2 weeks before the terminal was scheduled to open, the activation team ran a simulation. This was the test to see if their years and years worth of work and planning would pan out. Roughly 1,500 ordinary people were recruited to portray passengers. Each was given a unique itinerary for a pretend flight, both arrivals and departures. Within the simulation, 3 specific trials were held. They were known only to the activation team and unexpected by the airport employees. The scenarios included an unattended bag, a potential heart attack at one of the most distant areas of the new facility, and a bomb in luggage found in the customs area. One of the most important tasks faced by the activation team was communicating to the public where they need to go to get to the new terminal.
So we've spent some $8 to $9 million with Georgia Department of Transportation and the federal government to do a re-signing package on the freeway.
We'll get passengers from Birmingham, from Macon, over from Savannah, who may be flying internationally, and now we've created a separate entrance that people need to be aware of.
Most times you go to an airport, you got one front door. We've got 2 now. When you enter the airport in the future, if you're an international traveler, you're going to be coming in off of Interstate 75 versus Interstate 85 if you're a domestic traveler.
May 16th, 2012. It is opening day. After more than a decade in the making, the Maynard H. Jackson Jr. International Terminal becomes a reality. This is where millions of people will have their first experience of the United States, the country's newest international gateway, and Atlanta's new front door.
The team of people that worked on this project brought it in on time, well under budget, and with a level of quality and perfection that's not even approached anywhere else in the world.
This facility is a world-class facility. It's open, it's spacious, it's a phenomenal piece of engineering work and construction work, and it far exceeded our expectations.
You just look at what had to happen to make this facility work and the thought that had to go into it. Design and the planning is fantastic. The team that's put it together has really created what is going to be a very, very functional facility. HMMH and their entire team of designers and planners and builders have done a fantastic job.
Millions of man-hours to create a building which hundreds of millions will use for decades to come. At the topping out ceremony, Valerie Jackson saw both a link to the past and the promise for the future.
It's very wonderful to be here as we top off the beam in the new Maynard H. Jackson International Terminal. A few days ago, I flew in from South Africa. As we flew in, I noticed the frame structure of the new international terminal. And I thought, my, oh my, this is going to be so much more than just a facility of steel and concrete. This is going to be a respite for the diverse humanity on this earth. Each one of us who passed through the terminal, it would be an opportunity to make a connection with another culture, another kind of people, and in that way put us one step closer to understanding and one step closer to international peace. Maynard never met a stranger. He loved people and he sought to know them. So it's a fitting tribute to a man who traveled the globe and invited the whole world home to Atlanta. Congratulations and thanks to all of you who had a part in the creation and soon to be great international terminal. Thank you all and my hat's off to you.